Hello guys, my name is Anna and I'm from Ukraine, and I have decided to vlog daily since the start of this awful war with Russia. If you're new to the channel, please check my videos and subscribe because the world needs to know more about Ukraine, more about Russian crime, and follow our victory step by step. Because this is the only way to normality on this planet. And I want to start my today's vlog with a question. Would you like to go to Moscow? My answer will definitely be no. Plus, actually, I don't want to go to Moscow even on the Ukrainian victory parade. I don't know, riding a HIMARS or a tank, because I feel this is not my part of the world. This is not my culture. This is something that I will feel very bad about for a long period of time. You have to understand that even after we win, Ukrainians for years will remain traumatized by Russian actions, by Russian violence, brutality, hatred, chauvinism. Actually, for centuries, we have this problem with Russia that cannot imagine its existence without Ukraine, and thus constantly spoils our vision of our own home, of our own country, trying to ruin our connections with the West, with many countries that are our friends, like Poland, like the Baltics. I'm talking about those neighboring because there are other countries far away but still very close in our heart. But Russia constantly tries to ruin our civilizational choice. It always fails, but at a very high price for Ukrainians. Of course, we will not negotiate, and the only negotiations will take place on the battlefield. That's why it is so important to win this war and to be successful during spring and summer counteroffensive. And that's why I will ask you once again to talk to your politicians, to talk to people who have influence inside of your countries, to continue supporting Ukraine and not close their eyes on the crimes of Russia. And for me, very bad signals are actually the visits of various foreign politicians to Moscow. The very first one was the trip of Xi Jinping, to the president of China, to Moscow, directly after the International Criminal Court in Hague announced the order to arrest Putin and Belova as the responsible for children in Russian government. And at first I believe that this will be a very important argument for the president of China not to travel to Moscow, but he ignored that, demonstrating that actually the decisions made by joint EU institutions do not mean much in his picture of the world. But China is known for this long-term play, observing what's happening, supporting Russia, but at the same time looking how to eat Russia in future. What I like about Chinese philosophy is that, contrary to Europeans, contrary to us Ukrainians, they um, think in centuries ahead. So they do not always attack directly, they do it slowly, patiently, thus being quite dangerous in many of their choices. And of course, we cannot say that they support Russia 100% because they understand it's bad for their trade with the US and EU and other things. But we also see that they have nothing against Putin, his regime, and his actions in Ukraine. People who are so close to authoritarian, totalitarian approaches in their political style, of course, like leaders like Putin, because they legitimize them. But what is with Hungary? I have been to this beautiful country a number of times. This is one of my favorite travel destinations because it's very tasty, it's warm, it's not far away, and it is also a good place for traveling. You know that I hate flying, so I fly, but if I have an option, I always choose a train, and Budapest is a very good point to travel further in Europe and other countries. And I know that I have many beautiful subscribers from Hungary, so I'm not going to speak about country and its people, I'm going to talk about its government. Why Szijjarto was traveling to Moscow to trade everything normal for gas and oil. We all know that in general, Russia, the largest country in the world, the country that describes itself as a very strong country, um, has nothing to offer the world, no inventions, no serious productions, but just natural resources, dig and sell economy, oil, gas, and the majority of EU countries and other democratic countries all over the world realize that Russia uses gas and oil as a tool to manipulate, to make you dependent. And as a result, it is always good to be independent, to be free. Even if you are dealing with a normal country, with a civilized country, it is bad when everything depends, like all of your life depends on a particular country or on a particular person or even on a particular job. It's always good if you have some other options. It makes you feel more confident, it makes you feel safer. And Europe realized that. And for example, Germany, that was very much dependent on Russian resources, switched within a year. And other countries demonstrate that it is possible. And it's not only possible, it is also good both for the internal safety of these countries and also for environment, because come on, we have to think of more alternative solutions than old Russian gas, coal, and other stuff. But Hungary continues doing that, being a country of the European Union, receiving lots of benefits of being a part of the European Union. And they visit Moscow, they accept Putin as a president, they do not support openly Ukraine, and they are ready to continue these relations despite the general attitudes that exist in the European Union. And that is a very dangerous precedent from my point of view, because like unity, solidarity are vital for the successful operation of the European Union. Another problem is that it seems to me Orban recently said that if Putin travels to Hungary, he will not be arrested because like they guarantee him that, because what? Come on, we have Europe. Europe is united. We have International Criminal Court that is a very responsible and respectful institution. And so my mission here is not to blame Hungarian people, because I know very often we are not responsible for the sayings and actions of some of our politicians, but to warn you that these are very dangerous tendencies. And in general, when we look at the friends of Russia, like North Korea, like Iran, like China with its authoritarian tendencies, many countries who know nothing about Russia and simply depend on its oil and gas, as some countries of South America and Africa, it is dangerous. It is a dangerous symptom not only for global life, but also inside of your countries, because people who cooperate with Putin, seeing the crimes of his regime in Ukraine, seeing the Ukrainian prisoner of war beheaded, seeing that Russia threatens the world with nuclear explosions, and they continue cooperating, this is a very bad signal that your countries are run by really dangerous guys. And we have to be very careful, because it may be bad not just for Ukraine, not just for Europe, but for people living inside of these countries. Because traditionally it's like authoritarian regimes starting helping other authoritarian regimes, and so on. Of course, I don't blame many countries that are far away from Ukraine and they know nothing about Ukraine. I can only blame them for the fact that, like, come on, read more, analyze more. And for example, I receive lots of questions from my subscribers in India who support Ukraine and who support my channel. Sometimes they don't understand what happened between brothers, and I don't blame them, because like I don't know a lot about relations of India and countries around it. And I think that now our obligation, people all over the world, is to look deeper into various existing wars and conflicts and know the reason and choose the side we are for. And that's why if I have this opportunity, I would definitely warn you, uh, pay attention to your politicians and those who say that Russia is okay. It is still negotiable. It is still an object and subject of politics, and Putin is a president, not a terrorist. Be careful and try to change these politicians, because this can lead to troubles not only in Ukraine but in your countries too. And for me, today, Moscow is not a place to visit. Putin is not a person to shake hands with, to be photographed with. And I do hope that less than a year will take for him to be stopped, to be persecuted, and people will erase, there's people like Szijjarto will erase photos standing next to Putin. And I hope that Macron, after his visit to China, will not visit Moscow next. Because when playing this geopolitics, when trying to gain strengths in some areas that you believe it is possible, we all have to keep in mind the photos and videos from destroyed by Russia cities in Ukraine. Russian soldiers came on our territory with one task: to erase Ukraine as a country, to kill its children, to destroy its culture, to ruin the world that we were creating for centuries. And this cannot be forgiven. This cannot be treated as an act of political will or something else. This is terrorism, this is crime, and if not stopped, it will grow larger and larger. Do you want to live in the world where there is no Ukraine and Russia is stronger? No. I am confident that no, nobody wants that, including Hungary, because playing with the bear, you can end up in its stomach, and then it will, you know what happens with the food that was digested. So, let me know, would you travel to Moscow now? Would you like to travel to Moscow in future? That is interesting. And also I can tell you about my trip to Minsk, but it was long ago, almost 20 years ago when I was at school. Let me know and I can record one of my vlogs about that. So I have to continue cleaning the house because we have Easter this Sunday, and in Ukraine we call Thursday Clean Thursday, where you have to clean everything, including yourself and including your head. So that is what I am going to do. By the way, we had an air raid, but it finished quickly. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for buying me coffees. I actually have right one next to me. Thank you for becoming my patrons. This is important. You can also check our shop where we've got some interesting t-shirts, mugs, and so on. But I don't insist, only if you like it. And thank you so much for your support of Ukraine. Continue talking to your politicians, to your friends, to those who doubt, to those who are tired, because we have to win this war. And the faster we do it, the more realistic the victory is. Slava Ukraini!